Dust Bunnies and Techno, a van life tale. It started with sunset and the promise of serenity. The lake shimmered like a promise. Pines stood tall and reverent, their branches whispering secrets to the wind. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called out, the cry echoing across the still water like a hymn. It was the kind of place that made you believe in peace, in solitude, in the healing power of nature. But by 9:03 p.m., serenity had packed its bags and fled. Turns out, the quiet spot was the local hotspot for nightly shenanigans. Aunt Ethel, knitting prodigy and accidental party host, had set up her lawn chair smack in the middle of a spontaneous, naked techno gathering. Her needles clicked in time with the beat, and her expression remained stoic, as a shirtless man in LED suspenders performed interpretive hip thrusts to a remix of Bohemian Rhapsody. Then the vans arrived. First came the silver Sprinter, polished to a mirror shine, gliding into the clearing with the solemnity of a hearse and the precision of a military convoy. It parked at a perfect 90-degree angle to the lake, wheels aligned with the mossy verge as if the driver had used a protractor. The engine cut. The door hissed open. Out stepped the clean freak. They wore gloves. Not because of the pandemic, long over, but because the world was filthy and full of dust. Within seconds, they were in motion, mats unfurled with the grace of a magician's cape, bedding stripped and flung into vacuum-sealed bags, and a rechargeable Hoover summoned from its charging cradle like a knight's sword. The van rocked gently as they vacuumed top to toe, muttering under their breath about rogue pollen and unregulated foot traffic. Inside, the van was a sterile temple. Surfaces gleamed, labels glared. Gerald, the sourdough starter, was tucked into a BPA-free carrier and monitored for signs of microbial distress. The air smelled of lemon and bleach. Then came the music. It started as a low thump, like a heartbeat. Then a bass line. Then a remix of Bohemian Rhapsody featuring whale sounds and what might have been a didgeridoo. A second van pulled in, this one older, boxier, and covered in bumper stickers that read things like "Kale before capitalism" and "My other vehicle is my higher self." Out stepped the spiritual wanderer. They wore flowing linen and no shoes. Their van was draped in prayer flags and dream catchers. A crystal hung from the rearview mirror, swinging gently as they consulted a pendulum to determine the optimal parking spot. After a moment of deep communion with a patch of moss, they nodded solemnly and reversed 3 inches to the left. Their composting toilet whispered affirmations. Their sourdough starter, Serene, refused to rise unless Mercury was in retrograde. They lit incense, rang a singing bowl, and began aligning their chakras to the rhythm of the rave. The clean freak twitched. Next came the scent of rosemary and ambition. A third van arrived, this one black with copper trim and a tiny herb garden bolted to the back. The door slid open with a hiss of steam. The gourmet nomad emerged, wearing a linen apron and a headlamp, wielding a fish slice like a conductor's baton. "Tonight," they announced to no one in particular, "we dine on chicken with wild-foraged mushrooms and a reduction of wilted, well past its best green cabbage." They began plating with tweezers. Their spice rack was alphabetized and emotionally supportive. A solar-powered sous vide machine hummed softly in the background. The clean freak watched in horror as the gourmet nomad flambéed something dangerously close to their freshly sanitized wheel arch. "That's a Class A fire hazard," they hissed. "It's called drama, darling," the gourmet nomad replied, flicking a sprig of thyme into the air like a mic drop. The fourth van didn't so much arrive as clatter into existence. It coughed, wheezed, and finally rolled to a stop with a sound like a dying accordion. The side door fell off. The DIY disaster stepped out, wearing safety goggles and flip-flops, holding a wrench and a half-eaten burrito. "I just rewired the fridge to run off kinetic energy," they announced proudly. "It works if I jump up and down." Their van was a Frankenstein's monster of ambition and questionable adhesives. The roof rack was held on with zip ties. The solar panel was duct-taped to a baking tray. The plumbing system involved a garden hose, a funnel, and blind faith. Their sourdough starter, Kevin, was fermenting in a mason jar duct-taped to the dashboard. Kevin had seen things. The clean freak fainted. Then came the suburban couple. They arrived in a van that looked suspiciously like a bungalow on wheels, matching fleece jackets, a decorative sign that read, "Live, Laugh, Loaf." They unpacked like they were settling in for a long weekend at Center Parks. Tea towels were hung, slippers were donned. They tried to plug in the kettle and stared blankly when nothing happened. "Did you forget to switch on the mains?" asked the husband. "There are no mains," replied the van. By morning they had run out of water, gas, and emotional stability. The wife attempted to microwave a quiche using positive thinking. The husband Googled how to install plumbing when you have no skills or ideas. And finally, whirr, came the gadget man and his wife. They had recently upgraded from a small van to a medium one after a curry-induced emergency in a lay-by that left emotional scars and a permanent ban from a petrol station. Now their van was a tactical command center. Drones buzzed overhead, cameras blinked, gimbals rotated like confused flamingos. They had a flight checklist for every departure. Water levels measured to the milliliter. Toilet cassette logged and time-stamped. Parking angle must be within 2 degrees of level or the solar panels sulked. Trips were methodically researched, mapped and laminated, but all systems collapsed when a takeaway appeared within sniffing distance. The scent of tikka masala triggered flashbacks. The gadget man recalibrated the drone to track delivery scooters. His wife tried to live stream the curry unboxing, but forgot to charge the gimbal. Chaos, chutney, tears. Outside, dubstep whale remixes, tortilla chip confetti, and a man in a banana costume giving TED Talks on love. Inside, the clean freaks, Gregorian chants, disinfectant mist, and a compost bin that doubled as a footrest. Aunt Ethel, knitting prodigy, no longer noticed bare cheeks popping up and down in the longer grass patches, crocheted a glow-in-the-dark thong for the DJ. The clean freak fainted again. The gourmet nomad offered a fennel spritz. The spiritual wanderer whispered, "This is your lesson." The DIY disaster offered duct tape and a fork. The suburban couple asked if the curry came with mains power. Behind them, Aunt Ethel raised her knitting needles in salute. And just like that, fully recovered, the clean freak peeled out, tires squealing, Hoover still charging, and a trail of lavender-scented disinfectant mist left in their wake. The gourmet nomad shouted, "You forgot your amuse-bouche." The spiritual wanderer whispered, "You'll return when the moon calls your name." The DIY disaster yelled, "Wait, I think I just fixed the brakes." The suburban couple stared at the kettle, and the gadget man launched a drone to follow the clean freak's escape route, just in case they found a better parking angle. The lake shimmered, the pines whispered, and the loon, somewhere in the distance, fell over and laughed hysterically. For more fun stories, hit like, share, and subscribe.